I would like to begin this lecture by telling you three stories. The first is about Esther Dumas, a 49 graduate of Howard University. She is the owner of the finest French restaurant in Mississippi. Her father was a Frenchman who passed as a light-colored Creole from New Orleans, so he could marry her mother, the only daughter of one of the most respected AME ministers in Mississippi, just right outside of Jackson. So her great-grandnephew, a chef of some renown in New York City, had asked if he could get married in the family restaurant. And Esther said absolutely not, for the great-grandnephew's fiance was a transgender woman. And Esther said, I believe that marriage should only be between a man and a woman, and I don't believe that a man can change into a woman. So that's the first story. The second story is of a Somali immigrant who became a U.S. citizen, and she moved right between Detroit and Ann Arbor, and she had a florist business, and she was renowned for her beautiful, intricate floral designs. And a heterosexual couple came to her and said that they would like her to do their 10-year anniversary. And she said, no. She said, as a Muslim, she believes that the intimacy between a man and a woman can only be within a marriage, and they weren't married, and she felt that the floral design that they asked for implied something that she didn't believe in. And the third story is about this baker who was asked to bake a cake for a gay couple, and he said no. Now, these three stories, the first two are fictitious, the third one, of course, you know. The question I have is, where do they go on my line? So this is my line of what is most important to believe in, to be part of polite society, and what's less important. And this is that kind of question that I'm having. So let me make sure you understand what the three beliefs we have on the table. The first belief is that marriage is or should be recognized as the union of one man and one woman. The next belief is that sexual relations are properly reserved to such a marriage of a man and a woman. And the third belief is that male, man, or female, woman refer to an individual's immutable, unchangeable biological sex as objectively determined by anatomy and genetics at the time of birth. So we know that there are people who are intersex who have chromosomal or indeterminate gonads and such at birth, but that's a small percentage of people who want to be transgender. So they're saying if you look like a guy or a girl when you're born, that's who you are. So my question is, where does this go on my chart? And here's what I think. I think the question of sex outside of marriage is of the least importance, mostly because most of society believes, go ahead and have sex. In fact, there's going to be a new bachelor, and he's a freak. He's a virgin. He's a 25-year-old virgin. I think they're touting him kind of as a freak, and this is an interesting freak. Let's look at this guy. If we had a hotel, a Jane Austen hotel that only allowed people who were married to come to it, I think people would find that eccentric and perhaps charming. But gay marriage is almost out of this, and I put this at this line. I think some people would push this outside the line of polite society if you don't agree. In fact, that state where they said if you don't agree with this, or if you have beliefs that stop you from doing something, and you discriminate against people, you can be fined. So I believe if you were in polite society. Now the question that's against, and we're going to define polite society in just a second, but the thing that I find so troubling is that the LGBT community seems to think that gay marriage and transgenderism are right there of one thing, and I don't think that's true. To be honest with you, I think Obergefell, the Supreme Court case on gay marriage was incorrect. I think just like Roe v. Wade, I don't think we've argued enough about it. I think when the Supreme Court short circuits an argument, it doesn't solve problems. It certainly hasn't solved the abortion issue. I think most countries have come to some kind of compromise. And you might argue, well, some people have to be brought in kicking and screaming like Brown v. Board of Education. But remember, Brown v. Board of Education was passed 9-0. That's crazy. But it was done with all deliberate speed. 54 was when that was passed from, remember the Titans, the last school was in 1969, 15 years later. So I am troubled that gay marriage and transgenderism, I don't feel like we as a society have talked this one through. But here's what I think, because the question then becomes, okay, how are you defining polite society? And I really feel that we have, in fact, and this is so simplistic, I'm sorry, it's just we are, we've got how much time left? Not much time, but I feel like we have a right policy society, so a right polite society, and a left polite society. So the left polite society are people who live in San Francisco and New York, and the right polite society are people who live in Mississippi and people who live in perhaps Ohio and Michigan, those Midwestern states. And I don't think they cross. But I worry because I do feel that this question of gay marriage and this question of transgenderism, I think we still have some more talking to do about it. I would say less talking about gay marriage. We've been talking about that for some time. But remember, in 1960, in The Feminine Mystique, the name of the Betty Friedman says that one of the problems with keeping educated women at home is that they will turn their boys into homosexuals. That's what she says. Go read it. So again, remember, it was just in 1960 that people were thinking that homosexuality was an odd and bad thing. And here we are in 2019. And I don't think that argument on transgenderism is done. We've got to work that one out a bit. And I feel that in some places, if you argue about these two things, you will be shut out of polite society. And I'm not sure that's a wise move, especially when we have such diverse cultures. Does the center hold, I guess, is the great question. Okay, that was the lecture of what you have to believe. We'll see what comes up next. Ciao.